Happen every time. Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome, Michelle, on board. Uh,
Thank
my
you.
name is my name is Denling Wang. I work for Ministry of Agriculture, and for those who don't know me, and I am a provincial specialist, uh, alternative cropping systems. My role is to support organic production in the province. So this is the last presentation, last meeting for this year, and I thought, I don't want to start a new topic, just try to summarize things. Everything we talked today, we talked that before, but, this is something that, summarize all those kind of field management practices and then, give you a comprehensive understanding what we should do to increase the crop yield. And what I want to say, like growing a crop, there are many factors that would influence the crop yield. And some factors like the weather, climate, which are not under our control. So we cannot do anything. Uh, we should pick whatever that God granted us. Uh, those factors, including number of sunny days, and which provide sunlight for the crop to grow, and heating units and distribution, like how hot and when the hot weather happens, the temperature part, and rainfall, the rainfall frequency and intensity. That would directly contribute the water availability to crop growth. And those ones are given, so nothing you could change. But there are other kind of crop growth factors, determining the crop yield as well, which you can control, which includes the nutrients level. If your soil is lack of some micronutrients, you should be able to correct that. And the seeding rate and time, that is something that you could do as well. And weed control and insect disease management, those are the things that we could make it happen. And before we go to those factors, I want to introduce the concept of limiting factor. The concept of limiting factor can be pictured as a barrel with very lengths of the stuffs. The barrel is only able to hold as much liquid, or in our crop situations, yield, as the shortest stuff length or the factor would allow. In this picture, if you look at the left one, that phosphorus, that particular stuff is so low, and anything, you could increase other stuff to a higher level, but unless you make up that one, and your water level won't increase in your barrel. So once the problem started, like the soil P is a limiting factor in this case. It'll be oh, are you talking to me or? Anyway, so you have to correct this limiting factor before the yield could go to the next level. In this case, if you look at the right one and we add the phosphorus supply to your soil, and this stuff goes up, and then the next one, nitrogen over here, become a limiting factor. So the yield won't go up until this nitrogen level increase. So you keep going up and fix all this kind of stuff, and then your crop yield would increase. That's the idea. And for those factors we could control, the first one is to select crop varieties. And choose the varieties that are breed for organic production, or use the heritage varieties that have proven to grow well in organic cropping systems. Normally those organic varieties, they have a high resistance to disease and high nutrient use efficiencies. So they normally have a big root system developed. They could scavenge the nutrients in the soil, and also has the ability to compete with weeds. And why don't we use those, the new varieties, some of the varieties that was bred for conventional system? Because those those conventional varieties, they were bred for the high soil fertility levels. So they normally would give the farmers would apply so much nutrients, and basically when they do the soil testing, they're aiming for a certain kind of yield, and then they would give a recipe how much of nitrogen, phosphorus you need to add to your soil. And so the plant live a pretty fancy life. They don't need to work hard to get those nutrients from the soil. The soil actually provide, well, the fertilizers actually provide those nutrients requirement for them. Organic is different, so you guys would know that. There's a the second one is using a higher seeding rate. And actually, this is a generalized concept. And I remember a couple of years ago, there was a farmer who called me, organic farmer. He didn't really use a higher seeding rate because he had a chicken operation on his farm. He got a manure to apply. So the soil fertility is not an issue, and he kept up with weed control. His land was pretty clear. So he actually used the conventional seeding rate, and it was great. And his yield almost competitive, or almost the same as organic. And sometimes he actually get a better crop yield than their conventional neighbors. So that is the situation. And in most cases, the higher seeding rate is trying to deal with the nutrient deficiencies or to deal with the weeds control things. So in general, the seeding rate is recommended at the organic crops, that organic crops be seeded at a higher rate, like 125 or 150 of the suggested conventional crops in your neighborhood. The main reason is at a higher crop density, the crop canopy would close sooner, and then they would be able to compete would suppress the weed. Higher crop density also help crop to mature early and more uniform, because they compete for the moisture. Once the soil moisture is used up, the crops start, getting mature. The seeding early. The majority of research done on seeding dates in West Canada indicate that early planting translate into high yield and yield stability. And the reason was, early springtime, there's a lot of soil moisture available for crop to germinate. And when you seed it early, it also extend the growth period, and more nutrient supply could be, from soil. Particularly, if the crops stay in the field for a longer period of time, they would be able to get more nutrients from there. And when you grow crop early, the crop started early, so they would develop, the canopy quite quick, and then they would have a big biomass to compete with the weeds. So it would have a better weed competition, and also reduce the insect disease pressures, because you break that cycle, and then some of the disease, they would wait until a certain period of time, and insects as well. So if you start early, probably you would avoid those kind of insects or disease peak, and reduce risks of heat damage at the flowering period. Normally during plant flowering time, they don't really appreciate this high temperature, and particularly if that time is also short of soil moisture, they would reduce the successful flower turn into kernels. And the early seeding also reduce the low risk of a forest damage in the fall. And if you look at the picture on the left side, that's the cereals. Many of the cereal crops are, like cold tolerant. They actually could tolerate like -6 degrees after germinate for a period of time. And if you look at the graph on top, this is from the Manitoba's results, and all those kind of crops, including grain, corn, spring wheat, field pea, flax, oats, soybean, sunflower, barley, and canola. Almost every crop, if you grow in first week of May, the yield is always higher than you seed it on the third week of June. So if you look at some of the crops, just because seeding early, the yield could be increased by, like, this will be the 40%, 50%. And yeah, it's a pretty amazing to grow, to seed the crop early. But one thing that I want to say is if you grow dry beans, it'll be different. Seed rot would happen under the cold temperature if they don't germinate for 2 weeks. So dry beans, they're normally short season crop. You could start seeding late. It's not really a big issue for dry beans. And for the weed control, a well-established crop help close canopy quickly, that what we said earlier, and suppress germination of the annual weeds, and also reduce the competitiveness of the perennial weeds like Canada thistle. When Canada thistle is a problem in your land, later fall tillage in previous year, like later fall, if we're talking about 2024 seeding, and this could be the time to do the tillage. And later fall tillage would be able to reduce the Canada thistle germination 3 to 4 weeks, and which give the time for the crop to develop, early seeding crop to develop, and then to build their competitiveness. Other kind of weed control measures, including the rotary hoe and king harrowing, which are very effective in preceding or post-emergence weed control for young, annual, and newly germinated perennial weeds. And Dr. Steve Shirtlift at the University of Saskatchewan has done a serious study on that. And he found that, post-emergence weed control is very important because it would significantly reduce the weed biomass and could increase the crop yield by 20%. Well, prior to row closure, camera-guided inter-row cultivation can effectively remove newly germinated weeds and those larger weeds that left from early cultivation, which, escaped from previous treatment, they can be get rid of. The other thing, most I guess if it's worth to invest for organic producers is a Comcat, and that too, and many organic producers already use it. And if you didn't have it, you probably see other people use it to manage several broadleaf species. Very effective, including Canada thistle, white mustard, and other weeds. They actually reduce the wheat seed bank. And Steve Shirtlift and is doing a research on this Comcat and try to figure that out how many times and at what time for various crop would be more effective. Once the result coming out, I would let you know what he found, or probably you could summarize that. And another thing you probably want to, well, actually organic producers have been using the crop rotation. And it was said crop rotation can potentially increase crop yield by 10 to 15%. And this is, based on the long-term studies. And if, 1 year or 2 years, it doesn't really mean that. Particularly in conventional systems, some canola growers, they don't believe that. They just grow canola. They adopt canola snow rotation. And until they hit, club root or those kind of problems, then they can't grow canola for many years. And yet, actually, organic producers probably already benefit from the crop rotation you have used. And a good crop rotation can help meet each crop nutrients requirement and reduce the pressure from weeds, disease, and pests. You use different kind of crops in each year, and the root system is different. Some are going lateral, others are going deeper, vertical, and then they could take nutrients from different layers of the soil, and to not to let the nutrients sitting in the soil doing nothing or leached out. So this is a good thing to do. And also another part is to grow multiple species cover crop in the rotation to improve nitrogen or phosphorus use efficiency. And if you grow only one species cover crop, that crop actually you run a higher risk. And particularly if you just grow a legume for nitrogen fixation. And a recent study by Dr. Jeff Shino found that plants would share their nitrogen fixed, particularly some of those high efficiency nitrogen fixers like P and Fababin. And what they could do in the same year, in the same growing season, about 9% to 41% of the non-legume crop could get nitrogen from the legume crop that was fixed during that season. So it was pretty amazing. When you take the nitrogen out from those legume crops that was fixing nitrogen during that time, that would help the plant continue to fix more nitrogen. So actually, when you terminate the crop, terminate the cover crop, you have a lot more nitrogen fix. And intercropping is similar. If you intercrop a legume and non-legume crop, that would potentially increase the land use equivalent ratios. And Jeff Shino's study have indicate that. And he actually used flax chickpea and mustard and pea intercrops. And he found that, not only this kind of intercrop combination would improve the nitrogen use efficiency, and a legume crop also release some organic acids which help to dissolve the phosphorus that was fixed by the minerals and release them for other crops to use, which will become available for the next crop as well. So, well, I want to add another note over here is if you do have a phosphorus deficiency problem on your land, if you have a limited amount of phosphorus fertilizers, I mean the organic fertilizers or some kind of compost manure, and you want to apply it to the green manure season, not to the individual cash crop season, because when you apply phosphorus to your intercropping, not intercropping, cover crop season, the phosphorus would help the crop to establish, particularly the legume crops, help the legume crop to grow better, fix more nitrogen, and release more phosphorus for your next crops. That means if this is something looks like, well, I could use the analogy like an investment. You put this phosphorus into cover crop season, you are going to get more phosphorus for your next few cash crops. And in the meantime, you would add a lot more nitrogen into your field. Another practice you would need to think about is add livestock to your operation. Livestock added to the farm can help improve cash flow and reduce risk. Manure improves the soil fertility as it contains a significant amount of nitrogen and phosphorus. If not possible for you to raise a livestock like a cow, sheep, etc., try to work with your neighbor livestock producers to arrange grazing of your cover crop for or use their manure. And probably the investment will be like electronic fencing for them, and then you could charge them for per animal per day, something like that. And there are lots of organic producers in the United States use this kind of arrangement, and they really make difference. Another measure you could do is invest in soil amendments and new biotech products, like considering investing in organic fertilizer when your soil is short of some kind of nutrients. And like the limiting factor theory you saw in the previous previous slides, if that is a limiting factor, there's no way you could improve your crop yield until that limiting factor is fixed. So do the investment is important, either in the organic fertilizer or the soil amendment, or something like biomanure is another way to do it. Or you could also practice on-farm composting with specific additives, such as rock phosphate. Add rock phosphate into the decomposition process, to the composting process, and which would be able to improve the rock phosphate efficiencies. They would make those rock phosphate available to the crop, make more of those rock phosphate available to the crops. Also increase the micronutrients efficiency as well. And another thing is to watch for the scientific invention and new biotech products. Here is something that we have been talking, and some of those products are already certifying for organic producers to use for their crops. One is called Utrisha Nitrogen, and another one is called Invita. And in this summer, those two are microbes, they are bacteria. And what the thing worked, you mix them with water and spray onto the crops, and sometimes you could also apply in farrow to the root, around the root area. And those bacteria would get into the plant tissues through the leaf opening, the stomata. And once those bacteria get into, move into the plant tissue, they form a colony, and they could start fixing nitrogen. They use the plant carbohydrates to nourish them, and then they start fix nitrogen from the air, and those nitrogen would be sent to different of the plant organs of different parts of the plants, and they actually supply nitrogen throughout the crop cycle. Particularly, well, some of the study in the conventional side show that they don't do really a whole lot, only a few pounds per acre. And it depends. I thought that because the conventional systems, they normally have a very high nitrogen supply in their soils because they put so much nitrogen fertilizer in springtime before they seed. So they basically slow down or suppressed the nitrogen fixation efficiency. So in organic system, it would be different. Even a few pounds per acre nitrogen fixation during the growing season, which would significantly increase the crop yield, and particularly for the spring wheat, they probably would be able to help increase the protein concentration. If that happens, that could improve your, change your grain from animal feed level to milk for milling. Then the price would go up significantly. So sometimes worse to do. And in this summer, the people in northern part would be able to, well, in the southern part could go there as well. In the Prince Albert Conservation Learning Center, they are doing some kind of field trial on these products this year. They are setting up some field demonstrations on the Garth Bedham's farm, and hopefully they would demonstrate how this would perform. That would be, if that become a successful demonstration, and we should let everybody know. I would I would let everybody know what the outcome is, or I could invite Robin Locken, the manager of the center, to give us a presentation. Anyway, that's what I got to say today.
That's great. Thank you so much, Dunling. I think it's always good. It's that time of year as well to reflect on the year behind us and look to the year ahead of us. So appreciate bringing together sort of all of the information that you've shared throughout the year here today. So really now it's time to open up the webinar for questions, or the meeting for questions.
I will. Please